Boston's evening skyline cast long shadows across Newbury Street as Marcus Reynolds adjusted his tie in the reflection of Maison, the upscale French-American fusion restaurant where he'd worked as manager for the past 3 years. The crisp October air carried the scent of fall, and through the windows, Marcus could see the warm amber lighting highlighting white tablecloths and crystal glassware arranged with mathematical precision. "Looking good tonight, Julia. Make sure table 7 gets the 82 Bordeaux when they arrive." Marcus instructed one of the servers as he reviewed the reservation list for the 7th time that evening. Friday nights were always fully booked, and Marcus took pride in running the establishment with military efficiency. "Yes, sir," Julia nodded, though her eyes lingered a moment longer on her manager than necessary. At 38, Marcus wasn't an unkind man, but his rigid adherence to protocol and appearance had earned him a reputation among the staff. His perfectly pressed suits and meticulously styled hair reflected his approach to the restaurant. Presentation was everything. The door chimed at 7:15 p.m. Marcus looked up to see a man in his 60s wearing a simple gray hoodie, jeans, white sneakers, and a navy baseball cap pulled low over his brow. The casual attire immediately triggered Marcus's internal alarm. "Good evening, sir." Marcus stepped forward, reservation book in hand, subtly positioning himself to block the man's path into the dining area. "Do you have a reservation with us tonight?" The man's eyes crinkled with warmth. "No, I don't. I was hoping you might have a table available." His voice carried a gentle baritone that somehow commanded attention despite its softness. Marcus's smile remained fixed, but his eyes hardened slightly. "I'm afraid we're fully committed this evening. We require reservations, especially on weekends." A few feet away, Julia was arranging water glasses when she glanced up. Her eyes widened as she recognized the man, nearly dropping a crystal tumbler in the process. "Perhaps another time, then," the man said with a gracious nod. Marcus's chin lifted slightly. "Also, sir, for future reference, Maison does maintain a dress code. Proper attire, jacket and dress shoes at minimum, is required for dining with us." Something in the man's expression shifted, not anger, but a quiet assessment. "I understand. Thank you for the information." From the corner of his eye, Marcus noticed Julia frantically trying to catch his attention, making what appeared to be a cutting motion across her throat. At the bar, the bartender had stopped mid-pour, staring in their direction with undisguised horror. "Is there perhaps another establishment you could recommend nearby?" the man asked politely. "Café Nero is 2 blocks down," Marcus replied, the dismissal clear in his tone. "They don't have a dress code." The man nodded again, his dignity intact. "Thank you for your time." He turned to leave, and as he did, his profile caught the light. Behind Marcus, Julia whispered to another server, her voice carrying just enough. "Oh my God, that's Denzel Washington." The name hung in the air as the door closed quietly behind the departing figure. Marcus felt something cold settle in his stomach as he turned to face his wide-eyed staff. "What did you just say?" The following morning arrived with a gray drizzle that matched Marcus's mood. He hadn't slept well. After the previous night's revelation, he'd spent hours online, confirming what he already knew. He had indeed turned away one of the most respected actors in Hollywood. His phone chirped with a text message from Sophia, the restaurant owner. "Need to see you at Maison. 10 a.m. Marcus's apartment reflected the same precision as his workplace. Minimalist furniture, everything in its place. As he dressed in his best suit, he rehearsed his defenses. He was following policy. He hadn't recognized the actor. The restaurant was genuinely fully booked. Yet with each justification, the image of Denzel Washington's dignified exit replayed in his mind. There had been no tantrum, no pulling of the celebrity card, just gracious acceptance of disrespect. The rain intensified as Marcus walked the 8 blocks to Maison, his umbrella doing little against the wind-driven droplets. By the time he reached the restaurant, droplets of water had compromised the crisp lines of his suit, an imperfection that would normally irritate him. Today, it barely registered. The restaurant was eerily quiet, without the usual bustle of preparation. The chairs were still upturned on tables from the previous night's cleaning. Sophia's car was parked outside, but the closed sign remained in the window. Marcus used his key to enter, calling out, "Sophia?" "It's Marcus. We're in the private dining room," came her reply. "We." The word hit Marcus like a physical blow. As he walked through the main dining area toward the back of the restaurant, Marcus noticed that one table in the center had been set with the restaurant's finest china and crystal. His pace slowed as he approached the private dining room, the knot in his stomach tightening. When he pushed open the door, 3 people turned to look at him. Sophia, a young woman he didn't recognize, and sitting comfortably in a leather chair, Denzel Washington. Gone was the casual attire of the previous evening. Today, Washington wore a perfectly tailored charcoal suit that made Marcus's own look amateur by comparison. But it wasn't the suit that commanded attention. It was the calm, evaluating gaze that met Marcus's. "Marcus," Sophia said, her tone unreadable, "please join us." The silence stretched for what felt like an eternity before Washington spoke. "Mr. Reynolds," he began, his voice carrying the same resonance that had filled theaters for decades. "I believe we met briefly yesterday." Marcus swallowed hard. "Mr. Washington, I want to apologize." Washington raised a hand, not unkindly. "Before you continue, I'd like to introduce Jessica Martinez." The young woman stepped forward, extending her hand. She was in her early 30s, dressed in a professional blazer and skirt, with intelligent eyes that seemed to look straight through Marcus. "Jessica runs the Tomorrow's Leaders program," Washington explained. "It's an initiative that provides professional training for young people from underserved communities across Boston." Marcus shook Jessica's hand automatically, confusion evident on his face. "The reason I was dressed casually yesterday," Washington continued, "is that I had spent the day with Jessica and 15 young adults, talking about professional dignity and how to maintain self-respect even when others fail to show you respect." The irony wasn't lost on Marcus. His face flushed with shame. "I could have mentioned who I was," Washington said, leaning forward slightly. "I could have made a scene, demanded to speak to the owner, or simply pulled out my phone and shared the experience with millions of followers online." Sophia visibly paled at this mention, the implications for the restaurant's reputation clear. "But that wouldn't have taught those young people anything valuable," Washington continued. "Entitlement isn't what they need to learn." He stood and walked to the window, looking out at the rain-slicked streets of Boston. "What happened last night isn't unique, Mr. Reynolds. It happens every day to people who don't have my resources or recognition." Turning back to face the room, Washington's expression softened slightly. "I'm not here to demand your job or to shame you publicly. I'm here because I believe in redemptive moments." Jessica stepped forward. "Mr. Washington has reserved the entire restaurant for tonight. We're hosting a formal dinner for the participants in our program. Young people who've never experienced fine dining, who've been told explicitly and implicitly that spaces like this aren't for them. These young adults will arrive tonight in their finest clothes, which for some might still not meet your dress code standards," Washington added. "They'll learn about table settings, wine pairings, and restaurant etiquette from professionals. They'll be treated with the dignity that everyone deserves when they walk through those doors." Marcus felt the weight of every word. His mind raced to the countless times he'd made snap judgments based on appearances. How many people he might have made feel unwelcome or inadequate. "Mr. Reynolds," Washington said, his tone gentler now, "you have a choice to make. You can join us tonight as a server, helping these young people navigate an unfamiliar environment with respect and professionalism. Or you can join us as a guest, sitting among them, sharing a meal as equals. Either way, they will learn that a person's character isn't defined by their clothing or their familiarity with which fork to use first." Marcus stood speechless, struck by the profound nature of the choice before him. This wasn't punishment. It was an opportunity that he in no way deserved. "Why?" he finally managed. "Why offer me anything at all?" Washington's eyes met his directly. "Because redemption isn't earned, Mr. Reynolds. That's what makes it powerful." The rain had cleared by evening, leaving the air crisp and clean. Inside Maison, the transformation was complete. Soft jazz played through hidden speakers, candles flickered on every table, and fresh flower arrangements added splashes of color throughout the space. Marcus had made his choice. He stood by the door in his server's uniform, a stark departure from his usual position of authority. His hands fidgeted slightly with the cloth napkin draped over his arm as the first guests began to arrive. They came in groups of 2 and 3, young men and women between the ages of 18 and 24, their formal attire clearly not designer, but worn with unmistakable pride. Some looked nervous, others excited, a few skeptical, but all carried themselves with a cautious dignity that Marcus recognized as hard-won. "Welcome to Maison," he greeted each one, the words feeling different on his tongue than they had just a day before. "May I show you to your table?" Jessica arrived early, helping to ease the initial tension, introducing Marcus to each participant with genuine warmth. "This is Marcus Reynolds, one of our hosts tonight. Not the manager who refused Mr. Washington, not the man learning a lesson. Just a host." The grace of that simple introduction wasn't lost on him. By 7 o'clock, the restaurant hummed with conversation. Washington moved from table to table, his charisma drawing genuine smiles and attentive gazes. Marcus watched as the actor demonstrated which utensils to use with each course, sharing stories of his own early mishaps at fancy restaurants with self-deprecating humor that put everyone at ease. "I used a shrimp fork for my salad at my first Hollywood dinner," Marcus overheard him telling a table of young men. A famous director leaned over and whispered, "Son, you're making the silverware nervous." The laughter that followed was authentic, unburdened. As Marcus delivered the main course to a table where a young man named Darius sat, he noticed the careful way Darius observed him place the plate. "Everything all right with your meal so far?" Marcus asked. Darius nodded. "This is my first time in a place like this. I don't want to mess up." Marcus felt something shift inside him. "Can I tell you a secret?" he said, lowering his voice confidentially. "Half the people who come in here regularly don't know which fork to use either. They're just better at faking it." A smile broke across Darius's face. For real, Marcus confirmed. "The food tastes the same no matter which fork you use. The important thing is enjoying the experience." As the evening progressed, Marcus found himself engaged in genuine conversations, seeing each guest as an individual rather than as a category. He learned that Darius was studying computer science while working night shifts at a convenience store. Another young woman, Aisha, was preparing for law school while raising her younger brother. These weren't just underprivileged kids being given a charity dinner. They were complex individuals with dreams and struggles, determination and doubt, just like anyone else who had ever walked through Maison's doors. Near the end of the evening, Sophia approached Marcus as he prepared dessert plates in the kitchen. "You could have chosen to sit as a guest," she observed. "Why serve?" Marcus considered the question carefully. "I think I needed to see the restaurant from a different perspective," he finally said. "I've been so focused on maintaining an image that I forgot what hospitality actually means." The door to the kitchen swung open as Washington entered. Both Marcus and Sophia straightened instinctively. "Your staff has done an incredible job tonight," Washington told Sophia before turning to Marcus. "Especially you, Mr. Reynolds." Marcus shook his head slightly. "I haven't done anything special." "You chose humility," Washington replied. "That's not nothing." As they spoke, Jessica entered with excitement lighting her features. "Mr. Washington, the participants want to thank you before they leave. They're gathering in the main room." The three followed her out to find all 15 young adults standing together. One stepped forward, a young woman named Tara whom Marcus had served earlier. "Mr. Washington, Ms. Martinez, and everyone at Maison," she began, her voice clear despite her evident nerves. "We want to thank you for tonight. It wasn't just about learning which fork to use or how to order wine." She paused, gathering her thoughts. "It was about knowing we belong in spaces like this too. That we deserve to be treated with respect no matter what we're wearing or where we come from." Her words landed heavily in Marcus's conscience. How many Terras had he dismissed over the years? But especially, she continued, turning to Marcus's surprise, we want to thank Mr. Reynolds. Marcus felt his jaw slacken in shock. Mr. Washington told us about what happened yesterday, Tara explained. He told us that true character isn't about never making mistakes. It's about how you respond when you realize you've made one. Watching you serve us tonight with respect and kindness after what happened. That taught us more than any lecture could. Marcus felt moisture gathering in his eyes, a foreign sensation for a man who prided himself on professional composure. He didn't trust himself to speak. Washington stepped forward, placing a hand on Marcus's shoulder. The hardest person to forgive is often yourself, he said quietly, for Marcus's ears alone. But that's where healing begins. 1 month after the dinner event, Marcus stood at Maison's entrance, watching the evening crowd. The restaurant had changed in subtle but meaningful ways. A new sign beside the original dress code notice read, "While we appreciate formal attire, we prioritize respect and the shared joy of exceptional dining. All guests approaching with courtesy will be welcomed in kind." Tonight was special. Darius, from the Tomorrow's Leaders program, was bringing his family to celebrate his new internship at a tech company. Marcus had personally mentored him through 3 interview preparations. "Table 9 is ready, Mr. Reynolds," Julia said, no longer using the stiff "sir" she'd employed for years. Marcus nodded, straightening his tie. He now spent Tuesday evenings teaching professional etiquette at Jessica's program and had hired 2 of the participants as hosts at Maison. As he approached Darius and his family, Marcus saw Sophia speaking with a guest at the bar, another casually dressed man whose face was partly obscured. When the man turned, Marcus recognized Denzel Washington, who offered a subtle nod of acknowledgement. No words were exchanged between them across the room, but none were needed. The nod contained everything: approval, respect, and the recognition of transformation. Marcus returned the gesture before turning his full attention to Darius's family. "Welcome to Maison," he said with genuine warmth. "It's an honor to have you with us tonight." And in that moment, Marcus knew that his greatest achievement wasn't the restaurant's Michelin star or its exclusive reputation, but the simple human dignity he'd learned to recognize in everyone who walked through its doors.